Aloha, friends and neighbors. Rollin Frost here, Kona Astrologer. We're going to do show 1140, cover that second week in October 2018. You're just a month away from peak hurricane in Hawaii. So I warn you again, there's a hurricane coming. Get ready. And it's a big one. It's a real one. Now, on this show, I want to talk more about Venus, because Venus is stopping in the sky, stationing. She's slowed down in reverse direction. When she stops, it's on October 8th. And Venus is going to be very large in your consciousness. And see how I drew her? Yeah, the trouble is, when Venus stops here at 10 degrees of Scorpio, which makes her very sexy. Scorpio is a very sexy sign. She's stopping in square to Mars. Yes. And Mars in square to Venus is not good. Romeo tends to hurt Venus. So this could be very sexy, but it could be hurtful. It could hurt. There could be violence involved here. I mean, the girls are so sexy walking around in their bikinis, and the boys are so lustful, and they can't hardly stop. They're like little animals. Yeah, that's what the human body's like. It's like an animal when it comes to sex. So the worst of this will be on Wednesday, October 10th, when the moon goes by Venus, and you'll see it in the sky on the 10th. Word to the wise, keep your daughters home. And it's not a time to go wandering around looking sexy, sexy, sexy. Venus, do you hear me? Now, I got more to say about Venus, but first I want to go through the sky mirror for you and get the business out of the way. A lot of folks depend on this sky mirror, you know, and I'm learning that I don't seem to be making any money on chart work anymore. So I'm asking for donations for the service that I give you free every week to detail out the coming 10 days. We have our pattern of planets. Here's Venus squaring Mars. Ooh. Saturn and Uranus are still there in harmony, which is nice. And Pluto is sextile Jupiter. I'm going to give you some Pluto knowledge, because Pluto's stationed too. It just went direct. So sharks are biting. Pluto knowledge. Pesticides. Okay, that's a big thing. And I want to talk about some of this stuff, like this stuff. But first, let's get to the day-by-day happenings for you. We're going to run the moon around the edge of this pattern, and as it makes angles, squares and trines to the various planetary bodies, it generates the mood of the times. Here we go. If you're on the Thursday show, you're here, the moon's in Leo. Thursday night, good Mercury. Here's a nice trine to Mercury. And so you can talk things out, your mind should work good. Continues through the middle of Friday when the moon shifts into Virgo. And as soon as it does, it sharpens right up, because there's some good planetary aspects in Virgo. And I'm going to be talking about health here shortly. So I hope Friday night you're watching the show. It's Thursday night on most of the islands. But Friday night, here's the moon trining Uranus, trining Saturn. And amazing new information comes out about science and things that should be common sense. So common sense enlightenment Friday night. Good night. And here, Saturday morning, the moon's still in Virgo. And here's a nice trine to Venus. Stay in bed with somebody you love. But mind your Mars. Too much of a hurry, and there'll be hurtful sex. Yes. Now, Saturday night, the 6th of October, we're hitting this Neptune place here where the new moon hit and squared Neptune, and this is the last of it. This is the last of the whole month of floods and water and spilling things, confusion, delusion, forgetfulness. It's going to happen Saturday night. Not a good time for alcohol. I mean, you'll get all drunked up and lose the keys to your car. Something will happen. So Saturday night may look attractive, but it was Saturday morning where all the fun was. Here's where the sexiness was and the pleasure. Saturday night, delusion and confusion on the 6th. Beware. Sunday morning, truth comes out. There's a nice sextile to Jupiter, trine to Pluto. Whoa, now I realize what I did last night. Anyway, the truth and wisdom of Sunday morning is really nice. But it's a brief thing, because Sunday afternoon, here's the full moon squaring Saturn. And we got the old banker, ripping you off. Let's get those fees from bouncing. Oh, you bounced your check by $1. We're charging you 28. You bounced your check by 5 cents. We're charging you $28 from an overdraft. And we just take it right out of your account. We've got your money in our bank, and we'll do with it what we please. Ugh, Saturn, bankers, rip-off. Saturn, the cross of matter over the crescent of people. Ugh. So this is the last of the full moon on Saturn. Could lose some politicians here. Yeah, Sunday night. You could be awful tired of the baloney that's going on in our government, in our corporations. Well, moon shifts into Libra in the afternoon, and after lunch is the peak of your horror about our laws and regulations and the men that do it for money. Monday, the moon's still in Libra, and in the morning, you get a nice trine to Mars. Get out and do something physical. You need to prepare for the hurricane, folks. There will be a hurricane. Be prepared. There's another new moon Monday night that takes you out of the flood zone. Yeah, this new moon's in Libra. Squares Pluto, so now you're in the panic zone for a month. Yeah, the month following October 8th is panicky. Wind does that. Water is slow and creeps up on you. Yeah, they say, run from water, hide from wind. So get your hiding place ready. And here, late Monday night, early Tuesday morning, is the square to Pluto. And Pluto says, eek, panic out. There's tigers in the water. People are panicky. And it happens early Tuesday morning or late Wednesday night. You may hear some sirens here too. Now you're getting close to Venus. When you hit Venus, it gets a little complicated here. As soon as the moon goes into Scorpio, which will be the night of the 9th, Tuesday, you'll feel this. Uranus, there's an opposition to Uranus. Nobody's interested in the weird stuff, but the weather, there could be hurricane warnings and windstorms and people acting bizarrely and oddly. You go into Wednesday morning, here's a square to Mars. Uh-oh, aggression. Now what happens here is going to be spread all the way through Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday while the moon's in Scorpio. Because Venus is stationing. Should be beautiful. You go out and look after sunset. There's that beautiful blue-green star. But when Venus is getting lusty and loving, she has a square to Mars. She's too physical. This makes her overly physical. I mean, this is love. But, sex is like pornography. This is a pornography girl. And things are happening too fast and too rough. And they're too much like rape. And Venus could be in real trouble here all the way through Wednesday. Don't let your daughter go out in revealing costumes. And you can tell as soon as one of these young gals, especially the young ones, start to get sexed up. Oh boy, let's go out there and tease the boys. This is not time to tease the boys. Venus, settle down. There's also trine to Neptune, so they want to put on all kind of makeup and color and be like the girls on TV, huh? No, you don't want to do that. You want to get a husband? You want to get married? The boys don't marry the girls you see on TV and the makeup and the bikinis and all that stuff. No, they don't want an oversexed wife. But you're all oversexed here Wednesday, and it can get you in a lot of trouble. It settles down Wednesday night. There's a sextile to Pluto, and maybe some people get control. Moon's still in Scorpio, though, so look out. Here on Thursday, the 11th, the moon goes by Jupiter, and some truth and some wisdom comes out, and maybe you'll understand what happened to everybody back here on Wednesday. You'll see it in the news. Well, I don't know if they'll print this kind of stuff. Women defend themselves. Older women should take care of younger women here. This is not a normal Venus station when everybody just feels loving and affectionate. Nope. Your cat comes in your lap for petting and scratches you. It's that kind of a time. So the truth will come out when the moon goes by Jupiter in the middle of Thursday. On Friday, the moon goes into Sagittarius. It all changes. There's heroes out Friday night. It's a nice sextile to Mars. You better get out there and start taking things away that the wind is going to blow around. You might have another 2-3 weeks before the hurricane hits. So get out and do some preventative maintenance. You can do it for a few hours, and then late at night, maybe midnight or so, the moon squares Neptune. You get confused, you get lost. Better stop before something goes awry. You'll still feel that confusion on Saturday morning on the 13th from that Neptune square. Take it easy. Think things over. You're nearing a full moon, which happened to impact Uranus. And that full moon makes for a wobbly consciousness. That's Sunday morning. There it is. You can see a little FM. and there's Saturn. He's about to bring you down. You got a little bit lunatic like Saturday or Sunday morning? Thought you're all organized, huh? You probably weren't. You might get lucky, but oh boy, I would be very cautious on Sunday morning as the moon goes by Saturn. This is my bad point. When the moon goes by Saturn, it's right on my ruler. This is a time when you might lose your astrologer. It's a good time to put some donations in the mail, to try to keep this show afloat, because it's slowly sinking because this Saturn is on my ruling planet. Last week's show, I asked for some donations. It's real. Okay, here comes a chilling story about Venus. This goes back before I even started the show. I was at OSHA, and here's an intersection where you have stoplights in Honolulu. And when you pulled up at these stop signs, and you had cars all lined up here, what would happen is a little kid would come by and knock on your window. Would you like a paper? Want a newspaper? They're selling papers all around here. Now, when this red light goes green, all these cars here step on the gas, boom, out comes all this pollution. And it comes when you first start your engine up. And there's these little kids breathing all this stuff in. And when I saw this, I said, whoa, this is bad. We got to do something here. So I started a little campaign. And it went on for a little bit. And there's several people involved. I said, they should not be here. Turns out there's no civilized city in the world where you see little kids walking out between these lanes of cars idling, waiting for lights. Only here in Honolulu. Only here do you see these little kids. So I started publicizing it, and nobody, well, first man that came to my aid was Frank Fossey. Frank was the mayor of Honolulu. And he wrote me a letter and said, you're right, Mr. Frost. They shouldn't be there. I was one of those kids when I was young, and I'm short and my health is lousy because of it. So nobody wanted to do much. I went to my law books in OSHA, and turns out these guys are not covered under OSHA law, these little kids, because the newspaper didn't hire them as employees. They hired them as independent contractors. So OSHA law didn't apply. The next guy I went to see was Ed Gall. Ed Gall was the boss, the manager of HNA, Hawaii Newspaper Agency. So I went to see Ed, and I started talking to him about how bad this was, and how, you know, we have the worst infant mortality in the United States of all civilized nations. More of our babies die at birth than any other civilized nation, and most of the uncivilized ones. You want to have a baby, don't have it in America, go to Cuba. So I told Ed, we're polluting babies somehow here, and here could be one of the issues. And there's these little kids. And Ed told me that he couldn't take these kids off the intersections because they made so much money. These kids are making like $50 a day. So much money, and they're immigrant families, lots of them, poor families. And he couldn't take their jobs away because it'd be taking the money away from the family. He said it was so bad that their supervisors, when they went around and gave them newspapers the next day, had to give a note to the kid to give to the parents saying how much money they made yesterday, so the kids couldn't skim part of that $50. Yeah, it was that bad. So this is very frustrating, very frustrating. Next person that came up was named Elizabeth Dole. Elizabeth Dole was the wife of a Senator Dole, was running for president or something. They made her the head of the Department of Labor, which meant she was the head of OSHA. So I wrote to Elizabeth and I said, look, these kids, you know, they're doing a scam, independent contractors. But if they were under OSHA law, I'd have them off those intersections right away. You wouldn't put anybody out there breathing all that pollution, much less little tiny kids. And Elizabeth Dole wrote me back and said and showed me this law they had that said they allowed newspapers to be sold by kids on street corners. But they weren't doing street corners. They weren't on these corners. No. They were out there walking between the lanes of traffic. So the cars just starting and poofing out pollution. So I wrote her back and she said, well, the law applies here and nothing I can do about it. Now comes this salient stuff. I go back to Ed Gall, and I'm trying to make a friend out of him, and I got used to going into his office. And Ed Gall had a big office building here that Ed's office was all nice little glass thing here, and all the rest of this big huge office was full of secretaries, young gals at desks pounding typewriters. So I was in there one day arguing with Ed. I'd made him a friend, and he was showing me out, and we were walking out towards the main door here, And I said to Ed, you know, Ed, there's little girls out there hawking newspapers at intersections. Half of them are little girls. And I said, girls have all the eggs in their body they will ever have all their life. Very different than little boys. Yes, do you know that, ladies? You're born with all the eggs in your body you will ever have. Little boys regenerate sperm every month. You can pollute their stuff and not so bad. But you pollute a little girl, you're polluting all her eggs. And all those little girls at those intersections are polluting their children with that pollution. And we stopped at the door, and there was a sudden calm in the door. Everybody in that room, all 30 of those young gals, stopped typing. Dead silence. They listened to what I said. All the eggs in our body, all our lives. My God. I went back to Elizabeth Dole and said, look, you can't treat women the same as men. OSHA law stinks. It treats men and women equal. And they're not. The women can pollute their eggs. And their kids are polluted. It's very different. Well, Ed thought this over again. Ed Gall did. And a month or so later, he gets back to me and he says, Frost, we're going to take all the girls off of those intersections. There will be no more girls walking between running cars at these big intersections getting polluted. Wow. What had happened is the girls at HNA, the typists, the secretaries in that big room had heard what I said to Ed, and that's why they were silent. And Ed Gall realized it and said he had to act. So he took the girls out of the intersections, but he didn't take the boys out. I won half of the battle, but not the other half. Why am I telling you this story? Well, this goes on. Check this out. This says Johnson, a family company. Oh yeah, this is a fogger. You press it, it fogs and it puts out chemicals for killing bugs, ants, roaches, and spiders. Eek, a spider, eek. I got arachnophobia. Penetrates into cracks. Keeps killing for up to 2 months. You spray this around your house, you think it just disappears? No, it doesn't just disappear. And what's in it? The active ingredient is cypermethrin. And this is not good. Now, it's a small enough amount when you spray your house so you don't get immediate symptoms yourself. You don't get clinical symptoms. But it gets into your body, and it's all over your rug and your furniture, and it stays there. And your wife and your little girl all sit down on the couch and go barefoot on the rug, and these chemicals go into their bodies and go into their eggs. And this company Johnson is poisoning your ladies' children, and they're getting away with it. Yes, with these foggers, with all these other insecticides, because there's nobody watching the store. Your institutions have failed you, like Elizabeth Dole. She failed totally. And men and women are still equal in OSHA and in the military and everywhere else. Nobody's protecting the women, and their eggs are different from men, and especially from stuff like this. Do not use this. We have the highest incidence of infant mortality and babies being born in any civilized world. And it's because of this kind of crap going on in our country. So there, tell your girls, tell your wives, tell the ladies, please. Change the subject. You look at our country, there's two kinds of people. There's religious people, and there's scientific people. Religious people come from Neptune, 2,000 years of the age of Pisces. That's Pisces. Scientific people come from Uranus, Aquarius. That's where we're going for the next 2,000 years. Right now, the religious people seem to have it in hand with not my President Trump and chemicals and oil, and they're just doing everything. These are privileged people. They're not good for our country, and they're ignoring science. They're ignoring astrology. I'm going broke. Nobody wants chart work. I need a donation. Yes, from you to keep this program going. A donation. All you got to do is make out a check, put it in an envelope, and here's the address. Make a check to Rollin Frost, 77-6473, Princess, K.E. Likolani Drive, Kona, Hawaii, 96740. Yes, I would much rather earn the money myself, but a lot of people don't much care about chart work anymore. Too much on that religious side, huh? So, good to know your rising sign. You can email me at rollinfrost@yahoo.com and give me your birth time, birthplace, birth date. I'll give you your rising sign. You're your rising sign, not your sun sign. At any rate, I have found that people don't necessarily want to know what's coming up next year for them. But I am gone broke and I'm getting old. My health is poor. I need some help and support from you to keep this show going. And it looks like the only way I'm going to do it is like the preachers on TV and the environmentalists and all of that. Send me a little money. Send me a little money. Make a donation and keep this show going. That's what it's going to take, folks. Otherwise, you're not going to get some of this information. What you have to admit is unique information. You did not know that the ladies have all the eggs in their body they will ever had, did you? You did not know that if you're going to spray some crap in your home or your yard, you let the man do it, not the lady. You did not know that you got to protect the weaker sex, and that's why they're weaker, because they got all those eggs. It's important, folks. Women are not equal to men. Sorry to tell you that. You got to protect the weaker sex because you're protecting all the children they will ever have.